Arguably one of the biggest talking points of the entirety of the NFL season was Brock Purdy. Is he a game changer or a game manager? And obviously, we remember the big conversation that was spurred from the Cam Newton situation and all the follow-up conversations that have happened since then, and we're still talking about it today. But this is the first time that we actually get a reaction from Brock Purdy on this matter. Now, Mark Schlereth went on his podcast, the Stinkin' Truth podcast, to discuss kind of the game in Washington in which he called and which obviously gave him the opportunity to interview Brock Purdy, where Brock Purdy revealed some pretty spicy takes about the game manager versus the game changer scenario. So I'm not going to steal any Mark's thunder. You can hear it directly from him on what Brock Purdy told him about that whole game manager versus game changer. And Brock Purdy brought some spice with them. Take a listen right here.
You know, sitting down and talking with Brock Purdy that I really liked is, like, you can tell his football intelligence, his football IQ, where he wants to go with the football, understanding and being able to break down a defense, you know, looking at pre-snap and confirming post-snap and being able to pull the trigger and being able to get through progressions like bop, 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 like right now. Pretty, like, he's operating at a very high level. But I asked him the one question that, you know, he's been saddled with. And I looked at him like I'm looking at you, and I said, game manager, how do you respond? And I was impressed because he bowed his back a little bit.
Did he?
Yeah.
How so?
He bowed his back because Brock Purdy told me, said, anybody who calls me a game manager either is not watching the film or doesn't know what they're looking at.
Ooh, spicy.
In the end, the end of this thing will tell the story. And I'm telling him, he goes like, hey, listen, I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm not saying I'm the best quarterback or I'm the best, you know, but he goes, I got some gunslinger in me, and you look at some of the throws I make. You look at some of the windows I throw it into. He goes, I know that I'm not the biggest armed guy. I never have been. So I had to make up for the lack of arm talent with perfect timing, with great footwork, with being on time, and knowing where everybody is. And there was this touchdown against the Arizona Cardinals a couple weeks ago that impressed the heck out of me because they motioned into a 2-by-2 formation. Okay, so you have a slot, you've got an outside receiver and a slot receiver, right? Then you got a tight end opposite of that. So it's like the formation would be called, you would call it doubles, or some people call it dice, right? Tight end and Z receiver to the left side of the football field. Slot receiver, which is your F, and your Z on the outside. So they get matched up by Arizona in a man look. So the slot receiver has outside leverage. DB has outside leverage, he's about 5 yards off, outside leverage, trying to force that wide receiver into the middle of the football field, right? He's trying to force him to where the whole defender is, meaning the help defender, okay? Outside cornerback has inside leverage, about 5 yards off the ball, so he's trying to force that receiver to the sideline to use the sideline as an extra defender. Okay? So then they snap the ball, and Brock Purdy reads that pre-snap, snaps the ball, looks at it. Both guys jump. Outside guy jumps more inside, forces him, and stays on top. The inside slot defender, jumps outside and takes away the outside breaking route. Brock Purdy looks at it pre-snap, confirms it post-snap, is off of it in less than half a second. So even if the guy got open, he knows based on the coverage, I don't want to go there. So he's not holding the ball to see, hey, maybe the guy will get open anyhow. He's already off of it. So now he goes to Kittle running a shallow. Well, there's two defenders right there engulfing Kittle. Off of Kittle, he's got pressure in his face to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield running an angle route or a Texas route. And whoop, touchdown. about 8 yards deep in the end zone. He went through that progression. He confirmed it post-snap. He identified it pre-snap, confirmed it post-snap, got through that progression, and I timed it on my stopwatch. Just timed it. Under 2 seconds.
Oof.
So he went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 in under 2 seconds and threw a touchdown.
I don't think people realize
It was
how
freaking
talented, how
it was freaking
next level that is. That's not
rewound it.
game manager.
I rewound 15 times.
Yeah.
I was like, holy Moses.
Yeah.
And this is the kid. They're like, well, it's just Shanahan's offense. Like, most guys can't get through. Most guys can't confirm it.
Yeah.
Most guys can't. And you know what? Most guys aren't good enough or smart enough or not smart enough, disciplined enough to go, I don't want to throw it there anyway because the coverage dictates that I shouldn't. So many guys will hold that ball, and you might be able to fit it in. Like eventually the slot receiver, even though the guy had outside leverage, broke the stick route and was out to the. You could have fit it in there. You'd have gotten 3 yards. You wouldn't have gotten a touchdown, and it'd been tackled out of bounds, whatever, or forced out of bounds. But you just wouldn't no, I don't like it. So I'm not going to throw it. I'm off of it. Now he got duped in that Baltimore game. The first interception he threw versus a too high look. He thought he was getting a single high. He got duped into throwing one. He was a little bit late with the football, But I'm telling you, he's a little salty, and I kind of liked it.
I absolutely love the fact that Mark Schlereth is sharing this story and reiterating to the point that Brock Purdy, out of his own mouth, said, if you think I'm a game manager, you either don't watch tape or you don't know ball. I cannot say how many times I've said that same exact thing regarding the game manager versus game changer conversation with Brock Purdy. That's literally what we come on here and we talk about after Cam Newton, after all these people come out and say, Brock Purdy's just a game manager. And we talk about it all the time. Everything he does outside of structure, everything he does in regards to elevating the offense to new heights that we haven't seen before, elevating the players around him. Brock Purdy is not a game manager. Is a massive function of a quarterback's job managing the game. Yes, you have to be able to be good at that. And as we've heard from guys like Michael Vick and RG3, part of their problem was not being a game manager enough when they were playing in the NFL and having to learn that later on throughout their career. So I love that Brock Purdy is echoing the same sentiments that we've said about every single one of the comments, calling Brock Purdy a game manager. You either don't know ball or you don't watch ball. And that's exactly what we said to Cam. And with Cam, we know Cam knows ball. He played it at the highest level. So that's why our kind of roundabout, I don't know how he comes here without he can't come to this final thought process if he actually watched Brock play. And so that was our takeaway. That was my conclusion of it. And the fact that Brock Purdy spitting the same thing makes me a little bit happy. But Mark Schlereth continues to go on and talk about Brock Purdy. And of course, we've got Joe Montana in our organization. So it's a natural comparison, but he's not necessarily comparing Brock to Joe. It's more so kind of sharing similar traits that they see. And take a listen to Mark Schlereth as he talks about the processing aspect and element of Brock's game.
We're having this conversation because I think so many people out there watching think, we talk about quarterback play. It's all about the guy with the big arm or, the guy that can make plays with his legs. And you don't necessarily think of the ability to do what he just did that you described as being elite quarterback stuff.
Right.
But it is. I mean, if you're able to do that kind of stuff, you don't have to have a monster arm. You don't have to be fleet of foot. But if you can do what you just described, that's elite level stuff right there.
It's
that is next level stuff.
Right. It's a story about Joe Montana, and I'll keep it short. But
I think 49er fan is okay with a long Montana story.
Well,
right?
yeah.
But
Well,
I know what you're saying. I know.
But yeah, it was one of those situations where, like, the question to Steve, it was when Steve and Steve Young and Joe Montana were there, and Steve was like, how does, Montana get through progression so quick? And, what does he do? And like, I can't 1, 2, 3, and, and I got pressure, and he's just like, whoop, like, how do you do that? Right. Like, that was how the story was relayed to me. And, Joe's like, I ain't telling you how I get through. Like, that's for you to figure, like the competition, that
Right.
internal competition. But anyhow, the way it worked is like Joe had eventually said, and this is, through my relationship with Mike Shanahan, and Mike Shanahan was coaching, and he just said, basically, man, I eliminate. So pre-snap, I look at the look. When I snap it, if I don't like the defense they're in based on the route combination we're running, I don't even look at it to see if it gets open. I don't go 1 to 2. I'm like, nope, I don't like that. I'm off. I'm onto the backside. And so it just was like, confirm it. Nope, go to the backside. Like that, if you want to talk about, and I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is Joe Montana, but if you want to talk about getting through a progression like that, that's how that kid operates. He operates like Joe Montana operated in his thought process. And then sitting down talking to him, I was like, walk me through your process, like what you, and he's like, man, so we break the huddle, man. I know the formation, where we're in, what we're motioning to, what we're shifting to, and what the route combination is, where I want to go with the ball. If I get this look, confirm it, safety rotation, all this stuff. And he walked me through, Z's running this, X is running the F's running this, Z's, X is running this, my fullback is running, my Y is running that, whatever. And he walked me through it, and I go, I know as soon as I see this, then I know based on that look on the front side, I know that my back is in one-on-one with the, with the backside hook defender, right? So I know I've got a one-on-one matchup with Christian. So instantly, even before I go through my progression, before I snap the ball, I'm like, I've already eliminated it. If I get this, I'm getting to the one-on-one on the backside. So then I don't even have to confirm. I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. Let me get to because I know where my best matchup is. Like him walking through this, and I'm not doing it justice because I speak, it's like introductory to Spanish, right? I don't speak quarterback, right? I understand what you're telling me, but I don't articulate as well because I've never had to do it.
Right.
But I get what the process is, and the kid is super sharp.
There is an element to the 49ers fan base that is going to rally behind their quarterback. We've seen it with Jimmy Garoppolo when he was getting attacked by the media. We try to rally around him and said, don't talk about our quarterback. Obviously, people were saying bad things about him and his style of play and how he went about certain things. And as we kind of look back, there might have been some truth to some of those things, but of course, a lot of it was really harsh and maybe just didn't need to be said. But I think when we look at this new situation that has developed around Brock Purdy, I think we can all understand that what we've seen from Brock Purdy is a level of play at the quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers that we haven't seen since Jeff Garcia, literally, which is 23 years, 20 years, 2 decades. So I think that's why people, or at least 49er fans, get hyped up about this topic, is because we know better than anyone what we've been through. So when we see good quarterback play and like really good top tier quality like quarterback play, like we know it. Like we've had some pretty good examples of good quarterbacks in the 49ers franchise. So that's why I think a lot of fans are are really behind Brock and just really stand up for him when people decide to take shots at him. And he's an easy target. Again, he doesn't pass the eye test, doesn't have the biggest arm, and that's the easiest thing to knock when you're trying to evaluate quarterbacks. So I love what Mark had to say about this whole matter. I'm super happy he shared this story. I love that Brock isn't having it. And again, I think We talked about this element before. Brock never comments publicly on anything that's being said about him. He never makes it seem like it's bothering him or affects him. But we've heard from other players, like stories like this from Mark Schlereth, where he's a competitor. So if you talk about him, you talk bad on him, it puts a chip on his shoulder. So, hey, to all the doubters, keep putting chips on his shoulder because eventually he's going to make you look silly from what we've seen. Let me know what you guys think about this whole conversation and what Brock had to say in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.